ordered the Department of State Services to comply with another court's decision restraining it from arresting the suspended central bank governor. The ruling by Justice Bello Kawu comes barely 24 hours after Justice Hamza Muazu of a sister court had ordered the DSS to within 7 days charge Emefiele to court over his alleged crimes or set him free.
As at 29 December, and that judgment therein asked DSS not to arrest or detain Mr. Godwin Emefiele as at then the central bank governor on trumped-up charges of terrorism financing. That judgment is still existing. That judgment is still subsisting. The SSS or the DSS has not in any way appealed that judgment. They have not in any way obtained a stay of execution of that judgment. So Emefiele, by his lawyers, had come to this court to do what? Ask for enforcement of that judgment. And that is what the judge has ruled today by saying, you have to do what? Release this man or charge him to court within 48 hours.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Rise analyst Frank Tete. Frank, thank you for joining us on Newsnight.
My pleasure. See you.
Okay, there's been a lot of back and forth over this issue. But then let's look at the balance of justice. How do we balance a suspect's rights with proper dispensation of justice?
Well, you attain justice and truth with the standard of the law. And I cannot reiterate it enough that by our constitutional standard, Emefiele is an innocent man as we speak because of the principle of presumption of innocence. Anybody in Nigeria is presumed to be innocent if he is accused of committing any crime whatsoever. It doesn't have to be the big man that Emefiele is. So this is becoming a huge embarrassment for us as a country, for a new government to be superintending over this malfeasance by a law enforcement agency. For goodness sake, the constitutional standard is that wherever there is a court of law and anybody is accused or possibly arrested, take that person within 24 hours for trial. Now, do not contemplate to make an arrest, possibly, especially when it has to do with either a warrant, because it took a long time for the DSS to prepare for the arrest of Emefiele. Don't even make that arrest if you're not prepared to put that person on trial. It is a very dangerous thing to deprive a person of his liberty when you're unable to prove anything against him. It was becoming manifestly clear that the DSS was going to fish for evidence to support its charges or whatever accusations he had against Emefiele. And Emefiele is fast becoming a political detainee, and that is not good. You see, we shouldn't have independent-minded persons who believed in the policies that they ever implemented, and to the extent that they will be punished. The office of the central bank governor, however, whatever he does, is supposed to be independent. And with this introduction of suspending independent officials, whether it's the Chief Justice of Nigeria or now the central bank, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, it's not good for our economy, it's not good for our politics, and it's particularly not good for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Well, that's a point that's been made definitely in some quarters. Now, what's the difference really between Justice Kawu's order and that of Justice Muazu? Because breaking it down here, let me just give us a reminder. Justice Kawu, in his judgment, refused to grant the following reliefs of the applicant. Number one, an order setting aside his arrest, that's Emefiele's arrest and detention by the service. An order setting aside the detention order obtained by the service. An injunction restraining the service from further arresting and detaining him. But Justice Kawu went on to say, look, in spite of all of this, right, that the detention order exhibited by the service has expired since 10th July. So what exactly are we to make of this?
Look at it this way.
Because there doesn't seem to be much difference between Kawu and
there is a
Muazu
whole
here.
lot of difference, even though it appears that the outcome is the same. Right. The difference is that The man is already suffering injustice, a breach of his fundamental right to liberty and a fair hearing by his continued detention. And when you file the fundamental rights application, the order of the court is that you better release him or charge the court within 7 days. And we see this strange prevarication by a state institution saying it has already charged him to court when it is unable to make public the charges, the information that he filed against him. Again, but the second court order is that there is a subsisting court order that says do not arrest this man, do not detain him, and that order still is there. It hasn't been set aside. Now, in all of these points, but you must get something very clear. There is no order, and clients and citizens should be mindful of this. You can't prevent a law enforcement agency from doing its work when it reasonably believes that it ought to carry out an arrest. However, you can only continue to detain any Nigerian in the presence or in the existence of a court order. Let me tell you this: there are several court orders, tending to give Emefiele his presumed innocence, his liberty, and his right to fair hearing. There is absolutely no order that gives the DSS, even though the DSS is entitled to obtain an order to continue to keep Emefiele, but there is no order to that effect. So we are witnessing a direct disregard for the standard of justice and an order of court. That shouldn't be. I can take a lot of time to tell you the consequences of the narrative of a government that disobeys court order.
What are the consequences? The
consequences we witnessed in the last administration, and I'm telling you, an administration that started well with the highest of goodwill ever that recorded in Nigeria's history, blew it up all because it decided to have its own standard, contrary to time-tested standards that guarantee freedom, liberty, the basis for economic growth and prosperity. And so it wasn't a surprise that we saw what happened in the last administration. Let me tell you, in my line of practice, I've seen that this country being faced with withdrawal of services by international security services because of the standard of practice by law enforcement agents. You think it's about using state power to just, to expand your own whimsical thinking, or if you feel Emefiele is your enemy, that's not how it is. Emefiele is Nigeria's central bank governor. Again, he is a Nigerian citizen. Now, you said you suspended him. That is grave. You cannot keep him in detention without adequately informing the people who own Nigerian sovereignty, the people he serves, why you're keeping him.
Okay. Yeah, Frank,
administration of law standards, administration of criminal justice standards, you ought to inform the people, inform him, inform his lawyers what you have against him. Not only that, the person of the law that contradicts his action, and you give him the facts, you narrate it.
Okay, now Frank, say I appreciate of passion. You have more time to vent, but then do you think that law enforcement needs more training? Because when we look at what happens in the developed economies, they can trail you for years without any arrest until they are done with their investigations. So why can't we follow suit? Do you think they need more training so they don't keep arresting innocent citizens?
I have classmates who are in the DSS, who are in the various law enforcement agencies. I interact with them. Exceptionally brilliant men who understand these standards. We share these standards. But I tell you, our law enforcement agencies are under immense political pressure. And that's why, you look, being the president is not a tea party. Everybody blames you for everything. So we turn to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that would you under your watch allow this as a Democrat that you are? You have a very brilliant history as a president, as someone who has fought for democracy in this country. Would you want to see this going on under your watch? Look, see, let me tell you, it is wrong to even suspend a CBN governor. I saw the statecraft with which Goodluck Jonathan managed the suspension of of Lamido Sanusi, even though he literally became the enemy of that government, banding strange figures of certain billions of dollars that were missing, and then dashing out CBN money at his whims and caprices. The president didn't have to embarrass the entire country at that time. He had to make a very, very cautious explanation why the man had to step aside. But in this case, we are witnessing a man who struggled against many tides, against serious political pressures. Allow him speak, because it takes very little to swing the fickle mind of the human being. When you get the right information, the man has to speak. If you have anything against him, publish it. Why is it so difficult? No, don't run a police state. We cannot afford it in this country. We need all the goodwill we can to improve our living conditions in this country.
Before we let you go, look, there's a long list. It's not just Emefiele here. There is EFCC's Bawa. He's still in detention. There is Nnamdi Kanu, who's been, I mean, the courts, ECOWAS court, different courts have said, can you let them go? But a standard has been set. Impunity.
No, I refuse to agree. That's why we are adumbrating these issues. That look, this is dangerous to get started with as a new administration. Do not send the wrong message. Let me tell you, when the law enforcement agencies have this culture, have this mindset that anything can happen, that's the same thing that happens to citizens far in the hinterland where nobody happens. So look, set a good example at the federal level,
set
and the
a good
rest
example
of them will
at the
follow.
Federal level, and the rest of the country will follow.